Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the Rules Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today on behalf of my amendment. Shall I speak on my amendment now? You ready, bro? To H.R. 4639, the Fourth Amendment Not for Sale Act. This legislation as a whole would block systematic warrantless mining of Americans' data. The Fourth Amendment is Not for Sale Act was one of the key reforms in the House Judiciary Committee's widely endorsed FANFSA legislation, favorably reported out of committee 35-2 last December. It was also reported out unanimously in July as standalone legislation with support from Chairman Jim Jordan, Ranking Member Jerry Nadler, and now Speaker Mike Johnson. Specifically, my amendment speaks to address some of the concerns of my law enforcement brothers and sisters related to the legislation. Our founders learned from oppression and through the heat of war, and they learned to preserve our rights, and the Constitution would require writ. One might say it would all be safer with a soldier quartered in our home. But, of course, it'd be contrary to the founders' experience and contrary to our Third Amendment. Warrantless searches or acquisition of data obviously make investigations easier or more efficient, but at what cost to our citizenry and our constitutional protections. The Fourth Amendment specifically calls for probable cause to be necessary for a warrant, particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. This preserves clear protections from search and seizure of personal property from the government. Consistent with this ethic and my own core values, I propose my amendment to not include as a covered record the following items to ensure that law enforcement has the clarity to know that they will continue to have the tools they need to succeed and protect our communities. Number one, records made available to the general public on social media. If you've made the information publicly available to the world on social media, it will remain fair game for law enforcement for investigative purposes and legitimate investigative purposes. Number two, records made lawfully available through government records or widely distributed media remain available for law enforcement. If you can find it on a search engine like Google, then law enforcement has access and legally can look at that data. Records that a citizen would give consent to the government for access for a background check, as long as those records are scrubbed when the background check is completed. This was a needed reassurance to law enforcement across the country that they'd be able to perform background checks, often on behalf of or under contract from companies that require background checks. Those checks are conducted, and then that data is scrubbed. Records generated by public or private automated license plate recognition systems, or ALPRs, automated license plate readers are commonly called. Your license plate, by design, is to be observed. It's designed to be seen, and the ALPR system is crucial for law enforcement to operate at the local and state level. The amount of data used by law enforcement under these guidelines, these four that I've named, is already vast beyond the American imagination and incredibly effective for law enforcement investigations. More importantly, these available records do not require the government to buy any backdoor data from providers that Americans have never reasonably agreed to hand over to the government in the first place. We're largely unawares that these data brokers are gathering vast amounts of our digital information and selling them. This must be protected. My amendment does not affect that. I recognize that others in the law enforcement community may see this differently, and I respect that. And I am a constitutionalist, and I swore an oath long ago to the badge I still wear. I'm still a cop. My oath was not to a sheriff or a marshal or a chief. It was to the Constitution. And my focus with this amendment is to reassure my brothers and sisters from sea to shining sea that wear a badge and have sworn the same oath that I did, that my colleague's bill is designed to protect the same constitutional rights that we have indeed sworn an oath to. And my amendment addresses some concerns that law enforcement has voiced, that we've listened very respectfully to, and the author of the bill and his staff has been receptive to these concerns, and therefore my amendment is respectfully submitted, and I ask that it be appropriately heard, found germane, and supported by the committee. I yield.